You need to choose a writing utensil that will show up. Don't use a ballpoint pen; those don't show up. I use felt tip. I personally prefer the Papermate Flare pens. They are very fine point. That's because I write really small and I write hard. I press really hard on my pens, so I can't use a marker. Markers will show up better in terms of color and thickness. So if you write bigger or if you don't write as hard as I do, then you should use something like a Crayola marker. Those work really well, fine points. I don't suggest using a Sharpie unless you have some sort of backing. Like I have a backing. Actually, Michael Word gave me some linoleum flooring or laminate flooring, I guess, just a piece of the flooring, and that's what I use as my background. And it was primarily because when I was teaching geometry, I needed something to stab my compass into so that I can, turn it or whatever. And so that's why I got it. And it turns out that it works really well for this. And if you use Sharpie, they bleed through the paper. You're going to use like one sheet of paper at a time, obviously. And make sure you have a backing or whatever you're writing on is going to change color. I have a stack of paper ready to go when I'm doing rewrite. If I had definitions or images or something that I wanted for my recording, I'd have those pre-made because those are time killers in your video. Like if it takes you 10 seconds to write a definition, you don't need to write that live. That takes 10 seconds. Just have it pre-written, and when the kids need to write it down or copy it, they can just press pause and copy it as needed. So make sure you have definitions and illustrations and problems pre-written. The only thing you want to write are your annotations, or if you're working a problem, then you have the actual problem, being worked on as you go. And so you have to just test your writing. So if I want to say, for example, solve 2x minus 14 equals 7, and I test and see my writing is kind of small, and if I want people to see it better, you might have to zoom in. And I like to zoom in to about 1.3 or 1.6. Now you'll notice in the bottom of the screen, this corner 1.6, that's telling you your magnification. And that actually is being recorded, so that's going to show up in the video recording, the magnification. And I like to have my screen be full on the paper, so that's why I zoom in, because once again I write small. I'm not going to change the way I write or anything like that for the video. I'm going to make the video recording process as close to the way I teach as possible. And that's why I like the document camera, because I use a document camera in class, and I can actually set up my document camera in class, in my classroom, and act like I'm just teaching to the kids to get the most life into my video. And it's okay to see your hands. Actually, it's a good thing to see your hands in the video because it brings life to it, especially if you're like me and you don't necessarily want to have your face all plastered on the camera. And so having your hands there is great. When you first start off, I suggest keeping it as close to the way you teach as possible, and choose a process that's closest to you. So now I use a document camera, as I said, in class, so I'm going to record using my document camera. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. One of the things that you have to realize, of course, you have probably realized as a math teacher, is that kids are afraid to make mistakes and they're afraid to experiment. And if you are modeling that behavior, like you're afraid to make a mistake and you have to be perfect, or if you freak out when you make a mistake, then your kids are going to do the same thing. So, it's okay to make a boo-boo. Hopefully you catch it, and don't freak out if you do. And don't think that you have to re-record everything because you made a mistake. I actually put a mistake in the video when I was solving an equation that was an absolute value equation, and I was doing it wrong, but I decided early on in this process that I was going to model all the behaviors I wanted the kids to have, and one of the things that I want the kids to do is to check for their mistakes. So after I solved the problem, I plugged my answer back in, found a mistake. I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. And instead of panicking or remaking the video, I just left it in there and used it as a teachable moment and said, hey, kids, I make mistakes too. That's why we check our answers. And actually, it was really great because the next day the kids were telling me that they found the mistake before I did in the video, and they were really, that really boosted their confidence, and it was really kind of cool. And they noticed that I didn't freak out, so they became better with making mistakes. They just realized that they have to look for them and find them. Another tip for recording is you need to put your personality in your video. You don't want it to be just you droning on, because if you did that in class, that'd be boring. So if you do that in your video is boring. So you put a little bit of life into it, like seeing your hands in the video and emphasizing things. You can also, I know when I taught traditionally, I have these little Japanese erasers. They're kind of like this cute little thing that I put in there. And I put them in my classroom. And so during a point in my, I guess, direct teach, I'd have the kids, okay, you try to solve that problem on your own. And while they were doing that, I gave them time to work, and I'd put like a little hamster video there, or a little hamster eraser there. And I'd have it like walk across the screen or whatever while I was giving them wait time. It was just my personality. So don't take your personality out of your videos, because that kind of defeats the purpose of you making the video. If you wanted a dry and boring video, the kids could just go and find one online and watch that. So put your personality in there. If there's something quirky you do, something weird you say, something funny, little jokes, whatever, put them in there. If you want to put little artwork in there, then do. If you want to use a little hamster eraser, put it in there. You need to put your personality in your video. So when you're actually making the video and you're thinking about what you want pre-written and what you don't want pre-written, one mistake is to have everything already pre-written and then just like point to it and read to it. If you were just going to do that, then there's no point in you having the document camera. Just use PowerPoint. The reason to have the document camera is that you can do demonstrations, and then you can show and model your thought process as you go. So as a math teacher, what I'd have pre-made are obviously definitions or lists of criteria, things that were really writing heavy. Any drawings, but I wouldn't have the complete drawing. So if I were a geometry teacher and I was going to show some property and it had circles and a tangent and a chord, then I would draw the circle with the tangent and the chord, or maybe just have the circle drawn and then draw in or write in all the properties that I noticed, like the angles that were equivalent or whatever. And so I'm an algebra teacher, so the kind of things that I have pre-written are the problems that I want to solve, or the word problem itself, and then all the work that I'm going to do live action. And I'm going to narrate what I do just like I do in class. And one of the things that's really great about this is that I can model my thought processes as I go. So it's not just writing down the problem, but I can actually verbally say what I'm doing. And so I can say, kids, okay, kids, we're going to solve this equation. And, and you can even ask them questions like you would in class. Don't feel like just because this is a video, you can't have it kind of interactive. So you can ask the kids, well, what do you notice about this equation? Or what's the first thing you do to solve? Or whatever you want. Think about how you do this in class and just transfer that to the video. And that's why I say the very first few videos you make, you want the process to mirror the process you have in class as closely as possible. So if the very first few videos I made, probably the first 20 videos I made, I actually made them at school with the setup that I'm used to. It was exactly where it's set up in class. The projection screen was behind me, and I just recorded like my class was there. And that's actually how you get the best videos, because, you don't want to, tone down your personality or tone down the energy level you have. And that's one of the things that you have in class that you don't necessarily have in the video. So until you figure that all out, mirror the process that you do in class. And so then of course, you can, show everything you want the kids to see, right? And you get 2x equals 21, then you divide by 2. So I would put this live action, and I would actually write this part out. I'm not going to have this pre-written, unless, of course, the exercise would be, hey, kids, find the mistake in the work. Now, I'm going to also say this, color is your friend. Don't make a video that's monotone. You can add a lot of life to your video by adding color. And hindsight being what it is, I probably would have kept the problem in purple and then done the work in a different color. You can actually do each step in a different color if you want. And just make sure you have those pens ready. So that's why I invested part of my budget in this pack of multicolored pens, because I wanted to put some color into my video. The time in the corner was very important, because you want to make sure that your videos, any individual video is less than 10 minutes. That's actually a good length for a single video. If you notice a lesson is running long, then I suggest you split it into multiple videos. So it depends on, of course, the concepts. Some of the algebra concepts in my videos were like 2 or 3 minutes long, like, talking about algebraically what parallel lines were. But then when I made my Algebra 2 videos on the conic sections, like all about ellipses, I ended up making several videos that were a little bit longer. The rule of thumb that I've been trying to adhere to is for my algebra class that every 50 minutes worth of class, you should have something like a 7-minute worth of video. And sometimes I have less and sometimes I have more. And the more advanced your course is, the longer your videos might be. But I do suggest that you keep them for sure under 15. That's like the upper limit of anyone's attention span. Now, in the first, I don't know, I'd say 20 to 25 videos that I created, I did not have editing capability. And when you don't have editing capability, you need to make sure that you plan your video and that you don't have really seriously long pauses in the middle, because you can't get rid of those. So I would rehearse it a couple times and then record it. And remember, if you did a recording and you don't like it, you can always do another one. But the number one rule here is don't be a perfectionist, okay? Because your videos are not going to be perfect, and you actually don't want your videos to be perfect because that takes a lot of the flavor and fun out of them. So it's okay if you have little mistakes here or there, because when you're teaching live, you have a couple of little mistakes here or there. And there's nothing to be ashamed of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So don't assume, don't, spend 20 hours making one video because you think it has to be perfect. Because it's not, you're going to kill yourself, so don't do that. It's okay to have little mistakes here or there, and actually, one way to fix that is if you know you made something like a mathematical mistake, which I've done before, part of the assignment for the kids could be, find my mistake. And I put in the titles of my videos when I put them on YouTube. I'm like, hey kids, I made a mistake in minute 3. Explain to me what that mistake was, or whatever. And so that's a way to kind of cover up the mistake that you made. You can actually play it off that you purposely made the mistake just because you wanted them, as a part of their assignment, to find it.